Good morning. The bibliographic references and the publisher's source article are accessible in the description under the video. If you want to support the dissemination of scientific knowledge, subscribe, and can you give it a thumbs up please? Abstract. Background. Resistance training and nutritional supplementation are recommended for the management of sarcopenia in older adults. However, optimal resistance training intensity for the treatment of sarcopenia has not been well investigated. Methods. This network meta-analysis aims to determine the comparative effectiveness of interventions for sarcopenia, taking resistance training intensity into consideration. Resistance training intensity was classified into light to moderate intensity, resistance training, moderate intensity, resistance training, and moderate to vigorous intensity. Resistance training based on percentage of 1 repetition maximum, and SASH or rating of perceived exertion. Results. A total of 50 randomized controlled trials N equals 4,085 were included after screening 3,485 articles. The results confirmed that resistance training with or without nutrition was positively associated with improved measures of muscle strength and physical performance. Regarding resistance training intensity, light to moderate intensity resistance training only demonstrated positive effects on hand grip. Aerobic training plus light to moderate intensity resistance training plus nutrition, mean difference equals 0, 43.5, 32. Moderate intensity resistance training provided benefits on improvement in the 30S, chair stand test repetitions moderate intensity, resistance training mean difference equals 2, 98, 95% credential intervals equals 0, 35.5, 59. Timed up and go test moderate intensity resistance training mean difference equals 1, 74, 95% credential intervals equals 3, 34.0, 56, hand grip moderate intensity resistance training mean difference equals 2, 44, 95% credential intervals equals 0, 0.35, 70, and leg press moderate intensity resistance training mean difference equals 8, 36, 95% credential intervals equals 1, 87.13, 4. Moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training also improved chair stand test repetitions moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training mean difference equals 5, 64, 95% credential intervals equals 0, 14.11, 4. Gait speed moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training plus nutrition mean difference equals 0, 21, 95% credential intervals equals 0, 0.0, 48, appendicular skeletal muscle index moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training plus nutrition mean difference equals 0, 25, 95% credential intervals equals 0, 0.10, 5, and leg press moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training mean difference equals 14, 7, 95% credential intervals of 5, 96.22, 4. Moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training plus nutrition mean difference equals 17, 8, 95% credential intervals of 7, 55.28, 6. Conclusion. Moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training had greater benefits on muscle mass, lower extremity strength, and physical performance compared to moderate intensity resistance training. Increasing resistance training intensity may be recommended for sarcopenic older adults. Introduction. Sarcopenia, an age-related condition characterized by progressive decrease in muscle mass, strength, and function, currently affects an estimated 10–40% of community-dwelling older adults. Additionally, sarcopenia is associated with increased risk of falls by 60%, increased fractures by 84%, and adverse health outcomes such as functional decline, decreased quality of life, mortality, and increased healthcare costs. Modifiable risk factors including low physical activity and protein intake have been targeted for the prevention and treatment of sarcopenia. In 2018, the International Conference on Sarcopenia and Frailty Research ICSFA guideline for the management of sarcopenia recommended progressive resistance training and a protein-rich diet or protein supplementation. Recent systematic reviews and meta-analyses have demonstrated desirable effects of various forms of exercise with or without nutrition interventions on muscle strength and physical performance, as measured by gait speed or short physical performance battery. However, the evidence for increasing muscle mass is less consistent. One meta-analysis focusing on sarcopenic older adults found no improvement after exercise, nutrition, and mixed exercise aerobic training plus resistance training and nutrition, while another meta-analysis published in the same year determined that mixed exercise with nutrition resulted in significantly increased muscle mass among people with sarcopenia. Discrepancies in study results may be due to varied inclusion criteria, different definitions of sarcopenia used, and inconsistent exercise protocols in exercise type, frequency, intensity, and duration. More importantly, exercise intensity, especially for resistance training, has not been fully taken into consideration in previous systematic reviews and meta-analyses. The American College of Sports Medicine guidelines suggest moderate to vigorous resistance training intensity 60-80% on a repetition maximum, 60-80% percentage of 1 repetition maximum of resistance exercise for older adults. Recent systematic reviews and meta-analyses suggest that progressive resistance training may reduce mortality and produce greater gains in muscle strength in a linear fashion among older adults in general. On the other hand, one meta-analysis focusing on older adults reported that higher load resistance training only produced marginal gains in muscle mass and insignificant improvements in muscle strength. According to Sarpo et al., because muscle hypertrophy plateaus above a certain point in high-intensity training, high-frequency, low-intensity training may be required to continue increasing muscle mass. Additionally, high-intensity exercise might decrease adherence and lead to decline in total exercise. Thus, clarification of the effects of resistance training intensity on muscle mass, strength, and physical performance is needed to make precise exercise prescriptions for older adults with sarcopenia. The objective of this study is to compare the effectiveness of interventions for sarcopenia, with a particular focus on determining the optimal intensity of resistance training for older adults with sarcopenia. We conducted a network meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials in older adults with sarcopenia and pooled data of intervention effects on muscle mass, appendicular skeletal muscle, leg muscle mass, and skeletal muscle mass, muscle strength, hand grip strength, chest press, and leg press, and physical function 5 times sit to stand, number of repetitions done in the 30S chair stand test, timed up and go test, short physical performance battery, gait speed, and 6-min walk test. Methods. This network meta-analysis was performed according to the standards described in the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis PRISMA statement. A study was registered in Prosperi under the ID SARD E42,091,287,114. Search strategy and selection process. Using PubMed, EMBERS, Central Register of Controlled Trials Central, and Clinical Trials ClinicalTrials, Gov, we identified randomized controlled trials on sarcopenia from database inception until October 20, 2022. The keywords used for the search were sarcopenia or sarcoply asterisk and randomized controlled trial. To identify pertinent studies, we utilized the search terms train asterisk, physical activity, exercise, diet, nutter asterisk, and drug therapy. Additionally, we incorporated the associated ME-SH terms as sarcopenia, exercise, diet, food, and nutrition, nutrition therapy, and drug therapy. We integrated the search terms using the Boolean operators and/or. The complete search terms and search string can be found in supplementary S1. To ensure comprehensive inclusion of potentially relevant articles, we refrained from applying filters related to publication type, age, or language. Additional studies were identified by reviewing the reference lists of papers found through the database search. Study protocol paper and conference abstracts were not included. The inclusion criteria for studies were 1 community-dwelling adults aged over 18 years, 2 participants, diagnosed with either sarcopenia characterized by low muscle mass and low muscle strength, and / or reduced physical performance or dynapenia manifested as low muscle strength and / or reduced physical performance but with normal muscle mass, and 3 randomized controlled trial, since severe illness such as cancer, Liver cirrhosis or end-stage renal failure could induce cachexia and decrease physical function. Studies involving patients with these comorbidities were excluded. During the initial selection process, 2 independent authors reviewed the title, abstract, and full text of each reference to determine its suitability for inclusion. In cases of uncertainty regarding the study's relevance, a 3rd author was consulted to achieve consensus. When multiple studies on the same population were conducted by the same research group and reported identical outcomes of interest, we only chose the results from the study with the longest follow-up duration. The process of selection is detailed in Fig. 1. Finally, the included studies underwent a comprehensive assessment of bias risk using the Cochrane Risk of Bias Tool 2.0, accessible on website. This tool evaluates each study's susceptibility to potential bias across multiple domains, including randomization procedures, adherence to intended interventions, handling of missing outcome data, measurement of outcome variables, and selection bias. We categorized the overall risk of bias in each domain as low risk of bias, some concerns, or high risk of bias, data extraction, randomized controlled trials with at least one intervention e.g., nutrition, exercise, whole-body electrical muscle stimulation were included. One researcher entered the following data for each paper into a standardized table: authors, publication year, location of study, number of participants, baseline characteristics of participants, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, intervention S, comparison group, duration of intervention, intensity of resistance exercise, and outcomes of interest. Outcome measures included 5 times sit to stand, number of repetitions done in the 30s chair stand test, timed up and go test, short physical performance battery, gait speed, 6-min walk test, appendicular skeletal muscle index, leg muscle mass, skeletal muscle mass, hand grip strength, chest press, leg press. Since the quality of life, as measured by either the short form 36 or short form 12, is divided into physical and mental components, the combined quality of life is represented using overall physical and psychological scores. Grading of exercise intensity. Exercise was initially classified as either aerobic training or resistance training. According to the American College of Sports Medicine guidelines, the intensity of resistance training was categorized into 5 levels: very light, moderate, vigorous, and near maximal to maximal intensity, based on repetition maximum and / or rating of perceived exertion. The term 1 repetition maximum refers to the maximum weight an individual can lift for a single repetition. Relative intensity, indicated as percentage of 1 repetition maximum, was calculated by converting from the repetition numbers implemented in the resistance training program. The Borg rating of perceived exertion is a subjective scale and reliable measure of resistance training intensity. However, the sarcopenia management guidelines advocate for resistance training of at least moderate intensity. Accordingly, we stratified resistance training intensity into 3 distinct levels: light to moderate intensity, resistance training, moderate intensity, resistance training, and moderate to vigorous intensity, resistance training, moderate to vigorous intensity, resistance training. Specifically, light to moderate intensity, resistance training corresponds to scores of 611 on the Borg rating of perceived exertion scale whose full range is 620, 0.4 on the modified Borg's scale with a complete range of 0.10, or less than 49% of 1 repetition maximum. Moderate intensity resistance training is represented by ratings of 12-13 on the Borg rating of perceived exertion scale, 5-6 on the modified Borg's scale, or 50% to 69% of 1 repetition maximum. Moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training is characterized by scores of 14-17 on the Borg rating of perceived exertion scale, 7-8 on the modified Borg's scale, or 70% to 84% of 1 repetition maximum. To ensure accuracy, both the sports medicine physician and a geriatrician meticulously reviewed all included studies. They then determined the resistance training intensity through mutual consensus. Aerobic training primarily focuses on augmenting cardiovascular endurance and efficiency. Nonetheless, it also leads to discernible enhancements in muscular strength and endurance. Given that 50% of one repetition maximum is roughly equivalent to an average of 26 repetitions, aerobic training, which typically involves over 100 repetitive movements, can be categorized as light to moderate intensity resistance training. Thus, the effects of aerobic training on muscular strength and endurance might be more subtle compared to those elicited by resistance training. Consequently, we opted not to further classify aerobic training. Statistical analysis, network meta-analysis, was performed using changes in mean and standard deviation from baseline. 95% two-tailed credible intervals credential intervals were calculated, with p0.05 indicating statistical significance, when studies only reported 25% and 75% percentile of outcome values. We estimated standard deviation based on interquartile range RUR equals 1, 349 asterisk standard deviation. If changes in standard deviation were not available, it was estimated using the following equation. Standard deviation represented the standard deviation at baseline, and standard deviation post was the standard deviation after the intervention. CC was the correlation coefficient between baseline and post-intervention values for the same individual. If the correlation was not reported, CC was designated as 0. Viv. Network plots visually represented the number of study participants according to the size of nodes, and the number of trials conducted according to the thickness of collecting lines. Forest plots depicted the intervention effects compared to the control group. Effectiveness of the interventions were ordered by rank probability and determined using the surface under the cumulative ranking curve. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve, where larger surface areas equaled greater treatment effects. We used the web-based software Meta-Insight v4 0 powered by RShiny for network meta-analysis combining direct and indirect comparisons and figure plotting. All Bayesian statistical calculations were performed using R package GEMC. Random effects model by heterogeneity consideration was employed because results under random effects model in all analyzers demonstrated better fitting, with lower deviance, information criterion values, when compared to fixed effects model. Bayesian rank probabilities were visualized with cumulative rankograms. Publication bias was examined by Eggers regression. The consistency of network meta-analysis was assessed using the node-splitting models to compare the results between direct and indirect comparisons. Several sensitivity and subgroup analyses were conducted to ensure consistency and stability of results. Analyses were repeatedly performed by one sequentially excluding each trial and two omitting studies with a high risk of bias. Results. Study selection. The Prisma flow diagram shows the study selection process and provides reasons for study exclusion. A total of 346 publications were identified from 4 databases and hand search, of which 680 duplicate records were removed. After screening titles and abstracts based on the pre-specified criteria, the full text of 311 records were assessed for eligibility. After full text review, 55 records were retained. 5 more articles were removed due to lack of data. Therefore, a final total of 50 randomized controlled trials were included in quantitative network meta-analysis. The results of risk of bias assessments using RAB2 are shown in Table S1. Study characteristics. Table 1 shows characteristics and details of the included studies. The 50 studies included N equals 4085, mean age range :55, 0 plus or minus 9, 6 to 89, 5 plus or minus 4. 4 years were published between 2012-2022 and were conducted around the globe, mostly in Asia. 7 studies in Taiwan, 4 in South Korea, 3 in China, and 2 in Japan. 3 studies were conducted cross-nationally in Europe and North America. There were 14 studies involving resistance training, 5 studies involving aerobic training plus resistance training, 7 studies involving nutritional intervention, 1 study involving aerobic training plus nutritional intervention, 9 studies involving resistance training plus nutritional intervention, and 4 studies involving aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutritional intervention, and 6 studies involving whole body electrical muscle stimulation and whole body vibration. Adherence rates to the exercise intervention ranged from 74 to 100%, with no apparent correlation to exercise intensity. Details of the included trials are shown in Table S2. Regarding sarcopenia outcome measures, 23 studies examined muscle mass, 26 studies examined hand grip strength including 1 study on upper body strength, 16 studies examined lower leg strength, 23 studies examined gait speed, and 25 studies examined physical performance, including timed up and go test, short physical performance battery, single leg stance, and chair stand tests. Network plots of trials with each outcome are shown in Fig S1A1M. Results of network meta-analysis. Physical performance, 5 times sit to stand. Studies measuring this outcome included a total of 108 subjects receiving resistance training, 40 subjects receiving aerobic training plus resistance training, 314 subjects receiving nutritional interventions, 139 subjects receiving resistance training and nutritional interventions, 36 subjects receiving aerobic training plus resistance training and nutritional interventions, 48 subjects receiving whole-body electrical muscle stimulation, 24 subjects practicing Tai Chi, 115 subjects receiving bimagrumab, and 522 subjects in the control group. The results showed that the time taken to complete 5 times sit to stand decreased significantly in the resistance training group, mean difference -1, 59s, 95% credential intervals -2, 78, -0, 44, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 68, 7% resistance training plus nutritional intervention group mean difference :1, 57s, 95% credential intervals -2, 57, -0, 48, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 67, 8%, and aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutritional intervention group mean difference :2, 28s, 95% credential intervals -4, 23, -0, 29, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 84, 9%. A favourable trend was found in aerobic training plus resistance training group but did not reach statistical significance. Regarding resistance training intensity, either light to moderate intensity, resistance training, moderate intensity, resistance training nor moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training was associated with improvement in 5 times sit to stand. In the subgroup analysis, no differences were found for all interventions done on women and participants with low muscle mass. 30s chair stand test repetitions. A total of 95, 25, 15 and 93 older adults in the resistance training, aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition and placebo group, respectively, were included for comparison. Resistance training had the greatest effect. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 79, 15% on the number of repetitions done in a 30s chair stand test with a mean difference of 3, 70–95% credential intervals 1, 23, 7, 31. Regarding resistance training intensity, moderate intensity resistance training mean difference :2, 98, 95% credential intervals :0, 35, 5, 59, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 98, 32% and moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training mean difference :5, 64, 95% credential intervals :0, 14, 11, 4, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 81, 19% were both associated with dose-responsive improvement in the 30s chair stand test. In the subgroup analysis, resistance training remained effective in women, resulting in a mean difference of 3, 69–95% credential intervals 1, 22, 7, 27, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 85, 94%, timed up and go test. A total of 143 older adults using resistance training, 86 adults using nutrition supplements, 98 adults using resistance training plus nutrition, 12 adults using oxytocin, 28 adults practicing Tai Chi, 44 adults using whole-body electrical muscle stimulation, and 194 adults in the placebo group were included for comparison. Resistance training demonstrated greater improvement than other interventions. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 65. 52% on timed up and go test with a mean difference of -0. 85-95% credential intervals -1. 69 -0. 1. The effect was mainly attributable to moderate intensity resistance training mean difference -1. 74 95% credential intervals -3. 34 -0. 56. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 99. 18% instead of moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training. There were no differences in subgroup analysis on timed up and go test among all interventions done on women, men, the low muscle mass group, and the sarcopenic obesity group, short physical performance battery. We included 391 placebo, 29 resistance training, 16 aerobic training plus resistance training, 289 nutrition, 73 aerobic training plus nutrition, 51 resistance training plus nutrition, 66 MK0773, and 12 oxytocin older adults for comparison. No significant differences were found among all interventions in all participants, moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training group and women. Gait speed. A total of 227 participants in the resistance training group, 80 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 465 participants in the nutritional intervention group, 62 participants in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 36 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, 106 participants in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation group, 24 participants in the THI group, 115 participants in bimagrumab group, 25 participants in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation plus nutrition group, 66 participants in the MK0773 group, and 794 participants in the placebo group were included for comparison. Resistance training plus nutrition increased gait speed with a mean difference of 0. 17-95% credential intervals 0, 0-1, 0. 34 surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 85, 6%. Regarding resistance training intensity, moderate to vigorous intensity, resistance training plus nutrition was associated with improvement in gait speed mean difference: 0, 21, 95% credential intervals 0, 003, 0, 48. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 84, 87%, but light to moderate intensity resistance training and moderate intensity resistance training produced no significant differences. There was no improvement on gait speed among all interventions in women, those with dynapenia, and those with sarcopenic obesity. 6-min walk test. We included 27 adults from the resistance training group, 65 adults from the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 33 adults from the nutrition group, 15 adults from the resistance training plus nutrition group, 36 adults from the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, 115 adults from the bimagrumab group, and 182 adults from the placebo group for analysis. No significant differences were found in each group compared to placebo. There were also no significant effects of any interventions in the moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training group. Muscle mass. Appendicular skeletal muscle index. 24 adults in the aerobic training group, 305 adults in the resistance training group, 127 adults in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 271 adults in the nutrition group, 175 adults in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 95 adults in the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, 25 adults in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation group, 23 adults in the electrical acupuncture group, 58 adults in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation plus nutrition group, and 608 adults in the placebo group were compared. Resistance training plus nutrition mean difference: 0, 24, 95% credential intervals are 0, 1, 0, 38. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 78, 67%. Resistance training mean difference: 0, 19, 95% credential intervals are 0, 0, 8, 0, 3, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 65, 74%, and nutrition mean difference : 0, 15, 95% credential intervals are 0, 0, 4, 0, 26, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 53, 49% significantly increased appendicular skeletal muscle index. Although light to moderate intensity resistance training and moderate intensity resistance training were not associated with changes in appendicular skeletal muscle index, moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training plus nutrition was positively associated with increased appendicular skeletal muscle index mean difference : 0, 25, 95% credential intervals are 0, 0, 1, 0, 5, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 68, 21%. None of the interventions influenced appendicular skeletal muscle index in men, women, low muscle mass group, and sarcopenic obesity group, leg muscle mass. A total of 97 participants in the resistance training group, 40 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 142 participants in the nutrition group, 90 participants in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 36 participants in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation group, and 272 participants in the placebo group were included for comparing leg muscle mass. No significant differences were found in each pairwise comparison with placebo among all participants and the moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training group. Skeletal muscle mass. Studies with skeletal muscle mass as an outcome included 24 participants in the aerobic training group, 298 participants in the resistance training group, 122 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 280 participants in the nutrition group, 243 participants in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 59 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, 61 participants in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation group, 24 participants in the THI group, 115 participants in the bimagrumab group, 65 participants in the MK0773 group, 12 participants in the oxytocin group, and 655 participants in the placebo group. Bimagrumab mean difference: 1, 94, 95% credential intervals are 0, 81, 3, 0, 7, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 91, 21%, MK0773 mean difference: 1, 37, 95% credential intervals are 0, 37, 2, 40, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 79, 58%, resistance training plus nutrition mean difference: 0, 82, 95% credential intervals are 0, 31, 1, 32, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 57, 05%, resistance training mean difference: 0, 58, 95% credential intervals are 0, 11, 1, 04, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 41, 72%, and nutrition mean difference: 0, 51, 95% credential intervals are 0, 06, 0, 97, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 36. 73% increased skeletal muscle mass significantly. However, light to moderate intensity resistance training, moderate intensity resistance training, and moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training were not associated with enhanced skeletal muscle mass. Muscle strength, hand grip strength. We included 43 older adults in the aerobic training group, 267 older adults in the resistance training group, 152 older adults in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 553 older adults in the nutrition group, 73 older adults in the aerobic training plus nutrition group, 172 older adults in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 95 older adults in the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, 53 older adults in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation group, 24 older adults in the THI group, 58 older adults in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation plus nutrition group, and 1,063 older adults in the placebo group for comparison. Aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition mean difference : 3, 25, 95% credential intervals 1, 12, 4, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 87, 12%, aerobic training plus resistance training mean difference : 2, 43, 95% credential intervals 0, 69, 4, 11, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 87, 12%, resistance training plus nutrition mean difference : 2, 48, 95% credential intervals 0, 98, 4, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 73, 27%, aerobic training plus resistance training mean difference : 2, 43, 95% credential intervals 0, 69, 4, 11, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 70, 45%, resistance training mean difference : 2, 21, 95% credential intervals 1, 18, 3, 34, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 66%, and nutrition mean difference : 1, 73, 95% credential intervals 0, 76, 2, 74, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 50, 33% significantly improved hand grip strength. For resistance training intensity, aerobic training plus light to moderate intensity resistance training plus nutrition mean difference : 2, 88, 95% credential intervals 0, 43, 5, 32, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 93, 0.1% and moderate intensity resistance training mean difference : 2, 44, 95% credential intervals 0, 03, 5, 70, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 77, 87% were positively associated with gains in hand grip strength, whereas moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training was not associated with changes in hand grip strength. For women, resistance training was associated with hand grip strength improvement mean difference: 1, 97, 95% credential intervals 0, 2, 4, 12, surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 62, 5%. There was no influence on hand grip strength among all interventions in men, low muscle mass group, and sarcopenic obesity group. Chest press. A total of 24 adults in the resistance training group, 17 adults in the nutrition group, 36 adults in the resistance training plus nutrition group, and 29 adults in the placebo group were included for comparing changes in chest press strength. No significant differences among interventions were found in all participants, and the moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training group. Leg press. Studies examine leg press strength included a total of 43 older adults in the aerobic training group, 267 older adults in the resistance training group, 152 older adults in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 553 older adults in the nutrition group, 73 older adults in the aerobic training plus nutrition group, 172 older adults in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 36 older adults in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 95 older adults in the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, 53 older adults in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation group, 24 older adults in the Tai group, 58 older adults in the whole body electrical muscle stimulation plus nutrition group, and 1,063 older adults in the placebo group. Resistance training plus nutrition mean difference: 12, 3, 95% credential intervals 5, 59, 18, 9. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 88, 33% and resistance training mean difference: 8, 24, 95% credential intervals 3, 78, 12, 7. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 70, 81% were significantly associated with gains in leg press strength with respect to resistance training intensity, moderate intensity resistance training mean difference: 8, 36, 95% credential intervals 1, 87, 13, 4. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 80, 5% was positively associated with improvements in leg press strength, moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training mean difference: 14, 7, 95% credential intervals 5, 96, 22, 4. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 77, 59% and moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training plus nutrition mean difference: 17, 8, 95% credential intervals are 7, 55, 28, 6. Surface under the cumulative ranking curve equals 89, 71% demonstrated even greater benefits in leg press strength. There was no influence on leg press among all interventions in subgroup analysis of men, women, and sarcopenic obesity group. Quality of life. In total, 19 participants in the aerobic training group, 34 participants in the resistance training group, 33 participants in the nutrition group, and 76 participants in the placebo group were included for comparing overall quality of life. For comparing physical quality of life, we examined 75 participants in the aerobic training group, 67 participants in the resistance training group, 40 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 63 participants in the nutrition group, 74 participants in the aerobic training plus nutrition group, 69 participants in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 36 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, and 215 participants in the placebo group. Additionally, 40 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training group, 63 participants in the nutrition group, 69 participants in the resistance training plus nutrition group, 36 participants in the aerobic training plus resistance training plus nutrition group, and 159 participants in the placebo group were compared for psychological quality of life. No significant differences among interventions were found in all participants, and the moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training group. Sensitivity analysis. When reanalyzing data with the sequential exclusion of each study, the results remained consistent with the original analysis. Additionally, after excluding 4 studies that were assessed to have a high risk of bias assessed using RB2, the results were consistent except that resistance training plus nutrition lost its significant effect on gait speed and hand grip strength, and whole body electrical muscle stimulation plus nutrition lost its significant effect on hand grip strength. Discussion. For community-weighing older adults with sarcopenia, our systematic review and network meta-analysis confirmed that a combination of exercise and nutrition were associated with improved sarcopenia parameters, including 5 times sit-to-stand, 30s chair stand test repetitions, timed up and go test, gait speed, appendicular skeletal muscle index, skeletal muscle mass, hand grip strength, and leg press. Regarding resistance training intensity, light to moderate intensity resistance training only demonstrated desired effects on hand grip strength. Moderate intensity resistance training provided improvements in the 30s chair stand test, timed up and go test, hand grip strength, and leg press. Moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training had additional benefits on the 30s chair stand test, gait speed, appendicular skeletal muscle index, and leg press. Our study is the first network meta-analysis to investigate exercise effects on patients with sarcopenia according to resistance training intensity. The results revealed that boosting resistance training intensity to the moderate vigorous level had significantly greater positive effects on physical function, lower body strength, and muscle mass. Resistance training has been proven to be essential for the management of sarcopenia, but as it preferentially increases the cross-sectional area of type 2 muscle fibers that are replaced by slow type I muscle fibers and fatty tissue during the aging process. Additionally, research has shown that adaptive responses including increasing myofibrillar protein synthesis, satellite cell count, myonuclei count, glycolytic function, mitochondrial volume, and mitochondrial protein synthesis in skeletal muscle occur following resistance training. More importantly, relative resistance training intensity, percentage of 1 repetition maximum, was associated with 18-35% of the variance for the muscle hypertrophy response. More type 2 muscle units and associated muscle fibers were recruited with higher resistance training intensity in a dose-response manner, resulting in larger muscle size and greater force. Therefore, with appropriate instruction and supervision before, during and after exercise, moderate to vigorous resistance training intensity may be suggested for older adults with sarcopenia. Surprisingly, moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training was not associated with additional benefits compared to moderate intensity resistance training in terms of timed up and go test, which is a measure of overall functional mobility, including locomotion, static balance, and dynamic balance. Most moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training trials increased intensity by elevating percentage of 1 repetition maximum, but used the original exercise type, such as body weight workout and elastic band exercise, which mainly build limb strength. To improve agility and balance, power resistance training may provide benefits in addition to muscle power and physical performance. A 12-week randomized controlled trial reported that high-speed resistance training program may bring greater improvement in walking sprint, 8-foot up and go test, and sit-to-stand test. Another randomized, within-subject trial demonstrated that power resistance training generated more increases in muscle power and movement velocity. Considering the significance of rate-dependent mobility for fall prevention and functional maintenance in older adults, velocity-based power training should be introduced and integrated into traditional resistance training programs. According to our results, moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training was not associated with greater gains in hand grip strength compared to moderate intensity resistance training. Similarly, most moderate to vigorous intensity resistance training programs tended to focus on reinforcing lower limb strength because gait and balance were more pertinent to all-cause mortality, activities of daily living decline, and instrumental activities of daily living worsening. Compared to gait and balance, hand grip strength has been proven to be equivalently essential in the concept of intrinsic capacity developed by the WHO. In addition, grip strength was related to cognitive performance, mental health, and quality of life cross-sectionally and longitudinally, and grip training has been reported to improve cognitive function through increasing the local efficiency of brain-white matter connectivity in minor acute ischemic stroke patients. Because most resistance training programs target large muscle groups e.g., chest press and squat, training focusing on hand grip strength, like the lateral pull-down and reverse fly, may be incorporated when intensifying exercise is warranted. Management of sarcopenia based on strong evidence of treatment effectiveness is required. Our findings suggest that adding nutritional support to exercise interventions can amplify the effects on sarcopenia. Specifically, when nutrition is combined with resistance training, the improvements in outcome measures, such as hand grip strength and leg press, are more pronounced than with resistance training alone. Although electrical muscle stimulation, electrical acupuncture, whole body vibration, and Tai Chi have been introduced to manage sarcopenia, our pooled analysis showed no promising evidence of these interventions having favourable effects on sarcopenia parameters. Novel agents such as bimagrumab human monoclonal antibody targeting activin type 2 receptors and MK0733 selective androgen receptor modulator have the potential to improve skeletal muscle mass, but our results show no benefit on muscle function and physical performance. Recent studies suggested that dysfunctions at the neuromuscular junction and within mitochondria may contribute to the deterioration of muscle function. Engaging in physical activity has the potential to modify gene expression of acetylcholine receptor subunits and optimize mitochondrial dynamics, including fusion, fission, and autophagy, thereby supporting muscle function and preserving muscle strength. Notably, sarcopenic patients with low muscle strength may benefit more from exercise interventions than those without strength deficits. Future clinical trials are encouraged to investigate the impact of exercise intensity on sarcopenia outcomes, focusing on patients with low muscle strength and those with severe sarcopenia, characterized by reduced muscle mass, compromised physical performance, and diminished strength. The strength of our study is the robust evidence from the network meta-analysis of currently available clinical trials. Indirect comparison allows for estimation of intervention effects even if there are no head-to-head trials. Similar results among direct and indirect comparisons reinforce and support our conclusions. However, this study also has several limitations. First, inconsistent sarcopenia criteria among studies compromised the generalizability of the findings. Second, heterogeneous interventional protocols of exercise e.g., exercise type, intensity, duration, and frequency, and diverse nutritional support might make clinical application difficult. Lack of detailed information about exercise protocols in some studies might lead to misclassification bias. Universal reporting of exercise interventions with frequency, intensity, time, type, volume, and progression information should be encouraged in future studies. Third, many studies have failed to report on exercise adherence, potentially leading to an underestimation of the true effects of exercise interventions. Fourth, discordant advice on usual diet habits, lifestyle, and physical activity in control groups among studies might obscure the intervention effects. Fifth, given the variety of metrics used to evaluate exercise, comparing results across different studies can be challenging. The American College of Sports Medicine recommends a holistic approach to evaluating exercise intensity, encompassing metrics such as 1 repetition maximum, VO2 max, and rating of perceived exertion. This approach offers both an objective measure and a subjective assessment of effort, streamlining the standardization of exercise intensity across various studies. Detailed reporting on exercise intervention protocols should be emphasized in future studies. Conclusions. This network meta-analysis suggests that resistance training with or without nutritional supplementation improves physical performance, appendicular skeletal muscle index, and hand grip strength in older adults suffering from sarcopenia. Higher resistance training intensity potentially generates more benefits on lower body strength and muscle mass compared to lower resistance training intensity. Further investigation is necessary to clarify the advantages and disadvantages of intensifying resistance training and give insight to future exercise program modifications.